Welcome to the Ideal Investor Show. Join us on the journey to financial success. Let's go. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Ideal Investor Show. And today I want to push back on the fundamentals of our approach to investing. And I'm not saying our approach that is very much focused on real estate investing and then we diversify our portfolio by also investing in few selected stocks and in commodities like gold and silver coins, maybe a little bit of crypto, and obviously we're also holding some cash. So that is our overall diversified portfolio of assets. But one of the things that we have always said, I have spoken about, written about, mentored and coached about, is that one distinction in our approach is the long-term nature of it. I was kind of looking, am I the only one or one of the few people who talk about it in this way? And I was kind of happy to see that somebody published a list of quotes that supposedly come from Warren Buffett. And I had seen something very similar from a German stock market investor called André Costolani. And they're saying it slightly differently, but they're getting to the point of the idea of the long-term investing mindset. And it really doesn't matter whether you look at it for buying gold coins for the long term or stock in a certain company for the long term, or in that same kind of approach, real estate for the long term. So what do both of these investing gurus say is André Costolani said, if you have done the research and you have found a company that you do understand, that you do really like, that you do believe has long-term potential for success as a business, then buy their stock, take one of those extra special sleeping pills and sleep for 10 years. And then open your portfolio or your stock deposit or whatever you would have to see what happened to the stock of that company. Don't review it daily, weekly, monthly. Don't get worried about any kind of other stuff. Just know you have it. You can sleep like a baby. And then 10 years later, you look at it. And a little bit of a twist in that same direction is a quote from Warren Buffett, where he says, I never attempt to make money on the stock market. I buy on the assumption that they could close the market the next day and not reopen it for 5 years. A few years later, he also is quoted to have said, only buy something that you're perfectly happy to hold if the market shuts down for 10 years. And the market shutting down for 10 years, or like Costolani says, take a sleeping pill for 10 years, is kind of the same thing. Why is this important? It's not just the 10 years. You can pick any time frame that you want, but it should probably be 10 years. There's one other truth if you do some research where you will find out in almost every market, there has rarely ever been 10-year period where if you bought in year one and you held it for 10 years doing nothing, that you didn't make a profit. In the S&P 500 US stock market, there's literally no combination. You know, you start like in 1920 until 1930 and then 1921 till 1931 and so forth. Every conceivable 10-year window, you will always have made a profit. So even though there were like super big crashes and stuff like that, in a 10 to 15-year time period, you always make a profit. Now, the important message here is if you are willing to adopt the long-term mindset, this is also the patience you have to have. That's actually something that I oftentimes struggle with, especially when we see very significant movements in the market. For example, in our real estate portfolio, if you bought any properties between 2015 and the end of 2019 before the pandemic, and you held them since then. So you have some of them, the latest ones would be about 5 years now. And if you started in 2015, some of them are reaching 9 and 10 years. And you look at what is the value of these properties now, it wouldn't be surprising to me at all if some of these properties have increased in value by 50%, 60%, in some cases even 100%. You would probably be really, really tempted to say, well, with such a strong appreciation, shouldn't I sell? And this is where this long-term perspective that we're pushing for is coming into play. Because if you were exclusively after the appreciation, you might say, yes, I should sell maybe not everything, but at least take some profits. But if the purpose of buying these assets in the first place is not really appreciation, but getting them to a point where they generate a steady income for you, then that just means you are 5, 8, 10 years closer to that point. And so for real estate, if you bought a property with a 30-year mortgage and you are 10 years in and the value has doubled, what you can do and probably will also see is that the rent income has increased quite a bit. And you can take two steps, two directions. You can either say, I take the additional rent that I don't need to pay my obligations and put it in an accumulation account so I can buy more properties sooner. Or when you reach the point where you say, okay, I have now a portfolio, like in my case, where I have 10 properties. These 10 properties managed the right way and for the long run will ultimately get to the point where they generate the necessary income that I am looking for to be completely free to do with my time what I want to. And that's what I want for everybody. Now, how do you get there faster if you have this significant increase? You can actually take any of the additional money that comes in from the increased rent and pay it into your mortgage to reduce the time that you have to pay off the mortgage. And if you really think about it, if you bought a property, let's say in 2018, that made $200 cash flow a month. Now here we are 6 years later, that same property makes probably $500 in cash flow each month. Now, there might be a few other things that may have increased, but let's just say $500 is the number now. If you take these extra $300 between the $200 or $250 and the $500 or $550 you're making now, and pay that extra principal into your mortgage, your 30-year mortgage is probably turning into a 20-year mortgage. Now, what does that mean? Right now, you have these $500. But you're getting these $500 probably out of something like $1,200, $1,500, $1,600 rent. When that mortgage is paid off, instead of, if it were for some reason to be paid off tomorrow, instead of getting $500 or $550, you would probably get more closer to $1,000 or more. And so that's really how you can accelerate the time to the point where you can say, now enough of my properties are paying the majority of the rent into my pocket, and I get closer and closer to have the freedom to decide what to do with my money. And that's why this long-term perspective is so important. Take a sleeping pill, not in reality, but from a mindset perspective, and don't constantly worry about it. Don't jump on what the media is telling you, which company is exploding and which company is collapsing and that kind of stuff. Look at your investments with a long-term mindset where you say, I bought this. Yes, it needs to be managed and it needs to be basically kept in good shape, but it doesn't constantly need to be evaluated for should I keep it or should I sell it. And if you take that mindset at least for 10 years, maybe even better for 20 years, you will get to your time freedom point, no question about it. Now, the other thing is always find somebody who is encouraging you to be patient if you start feeling that you really want to take action and take profits or make changes and stuff like that. So that's it for today. Be well and stay safe, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.